Hey, okay, so welcome to Nolan's Disheveled Devlogs. Temporarily, let me make that clear. Temporarily, I'm going to do devlogs as a video, not a live stream. That's going to free up my Saturdays to just focus on looking at your games. And that'll also mean I can make shorter form devlogs instead of spending an hour or two talking nonsense. We can just get right to the point. And speaking of getting right to the point, what I'd like to talk about today is creating enemy behaviors in my game. So for the longest time, my game has basically used a fairly simple method of determining when skills get used by enemies. Just using RPG Maker's default skill-based determination here. So for example, this is not a good one because I've had to make some adjustments. Let's find a good example. How about here? So you have some basic simple conditions you can set up for when they use their attacks or buffs or whatever, but you don't really have a lot of control about when they can use it. You just leave it up to percentage of health and percent chance and stuff like that, but you know, it's sort of kind of awkward. You know, you never really seem to get the behavior that you want. So I've been trying to create more intent with the enemy's behavior in combat, and I think maybe this is what Iron Brew of the RPG Maker forums had suggested when he had beta tested my game. I'm not sure if this is exactly what he meant, but he did mention that since there's a limited number of fights on each map, and they are sort of scripted what kind of fight that you're going to go into, maybe it's better to have their behavior be more scripted. I think that's what he was talking about. I don't know. I've been thinking about that over the past, I don't know, while, since I did the beta test, you know, a few months ago. And finally, I'm actually kind of jumping into that. And I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but let's just take a look. Here, I have one of the troops that you'll fight in the seas. And here you can see that I have created a troop event here that is going to determine some of the behaviors of the enemies that are currently in this troop. Here's an example one. So we are going to jump down here to the jelly action. So the jelly is obviously the jellyfish here. And so this is what that jellyfish is going to do. So first of all, at the start of this turn, a special state gets applied on the entire troop. So everyone in this troop is going to get this state applied. This is basically going to reset them back to a neutral state, because what I'm doing is I'm preventing them from using special skills. The special skills are the ones that are going to be used with intent, while all the other skills are just kind of a use whenever kind of thing. I want to seal all those special skills to make sure that the correct conditions are met for them to use those special skills. So if we go down here, this right here is also maybe redundant information, but since I'm using invisible states to determine this, I need to make sure that even though one state is sealing skills, I need to make sure that other states that might be sealing skills are also present or not present, if that makes sense. So here I'm removing all of the states on the enemy that seals their special skills, or seals certain skills. Then we're going to go here, we're going to look at how to apply a buff to the troops in this party. So for example, before we can even apply the correct state for them to use the skill, we are going to use, we need to check to make sure that the troop, in this case the jelly, even has enough MP to do the skill. If they don't have enough MP, then there's no reason to do any of this, and so it can just be skipped and move on to the next action. We are going to check to see if the enemy that we want to buff currently has the buff applied. If they already have the buff applied, there's no reason to apply the buff. That's just wasting a turn. So if they already have the buff applied, then it's just going to skip the rest of the action and go to the next action. But if they don't have the buff applied, then it's going to remove the special skill seal. So now they have the necessary skill in their repertoire to use. So we're going to remove that sealed special skills state from them. Then we're going to apply another state that's going to seal all of their other skills, basically limiting them to only one possible skill that they can use. So that's basically going to mean the only skill they can use now is going to be that buff. And so we're going to jump to the action complete, which is going to skip all of this other stuff there, and then we'll move on to the rat. So the way that this works is if the jelly has enough MP, and if their teammate does not have any buffs applied to them, then use the buff. It's basically what this is being broken down to. So let's take a look at that in action. Okay, so here we are in combat with that troop. Don't worry about the health. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the jelly has enough MP to use the skill. So first, I'm just going to get some MP back myself. So we can top up the health and not have to worry about accidentally dying in this playtest. There we go. So what you just saw was the jelly just applied the buff to the rat there, which is actually good. That's what I want. However, there is a limitation to this method that I have done. No, actually it's behaving pretty well, but then again, it's only a 50-50 chance. So let me talk about one of the problems with this method. So this method actually will only apply the buff to a random party member. Now, I was lucky during that little playtest that it always applied it to the rat, which is who I actually really wanted to target, but because it's just unsealing the skill, and the skill will just target any ally, that means even though the main behavior is focused around the rat, it could still apply the buff to itself, even though the focus is the rat. So it's, I can use conditionals to set it up for also checking the jelly, whether they have the buff or not. And, you know, I can do that there. But it would just be nice to be able to make it target specific, allies under certain conditions. And unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure how to do that specifically. There might be a very messy way of using multiple different variations of the same skill, and, I don't know. But I would hope that there would be a more simple way of having it target specific enemies. There is the force action command, but unless I'm doing something wrong here, it seemed that the force action would be in addition to its own turn. So like it would take its own action, and then the force action would make it, well, force an action, even though its turn has been complete. It still did the force action, which it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to use its turn with the force action. So anyways, so that's one of the shortcomings with this method. Now, there's another thing I wanted to talk about with behaviors here, and that's going to bring us to the next part. So after the buff action here, we're going to move on to the heal action. So basically, there's a priority here. So first, it's going to check if it can apply the state, or the buff. It's going to check if it can apply the buff first, and if it fails to be able to apply the buff, then we're going to move on to the next thing that the jelly is going to check, which is healing. Now, from my experience, there was another enemy when I was working on the cave that has, actually most of the enemies in the cave have the ability to heal themselves. This, I noticed, it's really kind of obnoxious, especially when it comes to like just your regular old trash mobs. With your regular old trash mobs, you wind up having, spending a long time just trying to get this battle to end, even though they keep healing. So, I need less aggressive healing. That's where random variables come in. So, even though I've created a behavior here, for them to heal, it will only do this behavior, if the random chance has been applied. So, to begin, first we need to check the health of the current enemy, which is what we have here. So this is basically a slew of variable controls that all it's doing is checking the percentage of health. that the enemy has. This is kind of obnoxious that RPG Maker doesn't have this built into its variable controls and game data. You can't get like percent HP, it's just current HP and max HP. So we need to convert the current HP into a percentage of its total HP, which is what's going on here. I'm sure there's a way to simplify this through scripts. If you know how to simplify all of these variable controls into one very nice, beautiful script line, feel free to tell me. But effectively, it works just fine through variable controls. It's just a little bit messy. So if we move down to healing, now that we've checked where their percent health is at, we can now check some other things. So once again, if it's going to roll a random variable between 0 and 2. So that's going to leave 3 possible options: 0, 1, or 2. So basically that creates a 33% chance that it's going to heal. So if the random variable is 1, then it will check Jelly even has enough MP to do it. If it doesn't have enough MP to do it, then obviously it's not going to take this action. It's just going to move on to the next action that the Jelly can take. However, if it does have enough MP, then it's going to check the enemy's HP. If the enemy has less than 50% HP, then it's going to once again use invisible states to allow it to use the healing skill. I don't know if this is the best way of handling enemy behaviors. Feel free to let me know down in the comments, of course, because I feel like using invisible states is a really clunky way of handling this. I feel like there's got to be a better way. But so far, this is how I've set up their actions, and all of the enemies have their own different conditions to set up when they use special skills. It's something else that I've added to a lot of my enemies in the seas, because the seas were some of the first enemy troops that I created. I have actually added a bunch of new additional skills to the enemies in the seas as well to facilitate this new behavior in combat. So that's going to be it for this first video devlog instead of live stream devlog, Nolan's disheveled devlog. And thanks so much for taking the time to watch, and let me know if you know any better ways of doing these kind of things than the way I'm currently doing it. I hope it was informative though, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.